Hey everybody, welcome back. Another episode of Talk Openly. My name's Jack. I'm here with my wonderful Sangha friend Daniel from Lions Roar Dharma Center in Sacramento. Hey Daniel,
Hi, Jack. It's so nice to see you again.
it's so nice to see you too. Yes, it's amazing that it's come up not only on another Tuesday, but another full moon. I
It's a
felt
big one.
just talking about this, the full moon practice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious. Did you do any full moon practice today?
Yeah, I've done kind of like a partial Mahayana precepts day,
Okay.
the eight precepts. I'm kind of I don't know if this is don't follow my lead. Like ask your teacher. But I kind of just for energy wise and being able to stay up with work and I did have some miso soup tonight rather than fasting the whole day, um, which I think was fine. Um, I don't know, and I don't think that that would be like technically following the precept, but I did ask the Buddha, like, "Hey, I'm gonna have some food. Can I have some food?" And like offered it, right? Um, and so I'm doing kind of like a partial. Um,
Nice.
yeah,
I like the way that you extended you're doing the practice, but you extended some sort of tender compassion towards yourself.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, if for anyone who's been listening for the last year or two, probably pretty clear that I can be pretty hard on myself, and so I think sometimes it's good to, all the time, it's good to
Mm-hmm.
examine our middle ground. So maybe that's a little bit of my middle ground today is being,
Nice.
yeah, a little easier on myself. Um, but yeah, still doing the practice today and noticing how it kind of orients me back to Dharma, which is fantastic. And also continuing to follow my teacher's instructions to, as best as I can throughout the day, really keeping a Dharma topic like front and center in my mind, and trying to kind of like mull over like the questions, the Dharma questions and topics,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's been really good. Um, I highly encourage thinking about that kind of practice, just keeping it in your mind, whenever you can. Um, it does make for uh, easier meditation. Is that it's like if I'm already kind of like in it throughout the day, then it's not so difficult of a burden to pick up when I'm just, when I'm sitting on my cushion for formal practice. Um, so that's been interesting to observe too. Um, And yeah, it's pretty much just as Lama as Lama Jimpa um noted when I got these instructions. It's like, yeah, it's gonna be easier. Like if you're thinking about it and really, trying to learn as much as possible throughout the day, like the meditation is gonna be easier. It's gonna be more natural. Um,
Yeah.
and I've really found that to be true.
And
So
vice versa.
yeah, yeah, most
Right.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yep.
meditation and post meditation feed into each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly.
Nice
Yeah.
work. Nice, good job
Thanks.
on your mind training.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. And otherwise, just no, in my kind of like, I don't know, practice realm where it's like my driver's license identity, like that person, like my everyday self. Um, just noticing little funny things around like when I do something nice for someone or like offer generosity, I'm kind of yeah, I do it so with expectation of
Oh
like
yeah.
receiving
Yeah.
something. I know we've talked about that with
Yeah.
generosity before. And so I've been specifically trying the best I can to just like um notice that and then also be like, nope, I'm not even gonna start having that thought in my mind, you know? I'm not even gonna entertain it. I'm just I'm just doing the thing, right? I'm just
Yeah,
doing the
yeah,
thing. Um, and so I think sometimes that's an important approach too, is just like, cut it. Like, nope, not helpful. It's just not
right,
helpful. It's not
right. You
helpful, so
just
it's
see
not even useful to think about.
you see it. You see clearly sort of cut right through it with that Manjushri sword, right?
Yeah,
It
right.
reminds me of Lama Jimpa's talk on Sunday. Did you get a chance to, were you there for that?
I didn't. No,
Okay.
no. I was actually out at Mount Rainier on Sunday,
Lovely.
so I'll have to listen to the talk when it's posted.
Yeah, pretty simple and easy to understand, I thought. But one thing that I thought was funny was sort of at the outset, he was like, you know, what's the third noble truth there, right? The truth about the end of suffering. And he goes, yeah, that's like the stop it phase. Just stop it. And he referred to a Bob Newhart joke, which was pretty funny. I watched it afterward, but
Uh-huh.
that sometimes you just like the problems are caused by something that you can see, and you could just stop that. You
Yeah.
know, like look, there's a relationship between cause and effect. If you remove the cause, you remove the effect, right? And this kind of like that kind of sharp cutting through is sometimes really required where you see like all this mind training and stuff. You're like, oh my God, you can see your neurotic conceptual mind doing its things, right?
Yep.
And you see how it causes problems for you, and you can continue to sort of be attached to them and to identify with them and continue to observe the problems that arise as a result. And then at some point, and I think this is probably true renunciation, you
Mm.
just sort of get fed up with it and you're like,
Totally.
just stop with that bullshit.
Just stop
Just
it
stop it,
already.
right? Just
Yeah.
stop, right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I've been feeling a little bit of that lately too, like just kind of an annoyance with like my habits. I'm just
Right.
like, God, this is so annoying.
Right.
just drop it. Um,
Exactly. Like that
which is
habit of
sometimes
being
harder.
attached to
Yeah.
the outcome, right?
Right. Right.
You
Yeah.
know, like just no, just do the giving part of it and stop there. Don't
Yeah.
worry about the outcome. It'll be
Yeah.
good. It'll be fine. If you're being generous,
Yeah.
the effect will be good and you can trust that.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's
Right.
no good
Yeah.
cause that yields bad effect.
Exactly. Being content enough to create the causes, right?
That's right.
That's what we're encouraged to do.
Are you still doing your thing where you are sort of saying yes or opening up with at least one person a day?
Yes, I definitely, so, most of my day is intentional, like scheduled time to talk with people, right? For
Yeah.
my job. But otherwise, I would tend to probably ignore most people in my day to day. And so, yeah, I've been continuing to at least like say hi, smile, like open up to people.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, sometimes if I'm not careful, like I'll end up just kind of doing like a brief like, like hey
yeah,
thing and not really uh be open to actually having a conversation with someone. But I have found that that continues to be just like a really nice check-in my day because it requires me to step outside of like um, my typical mode. And
hmm,
so even if it's just like a wave and a smile at someone I'm walking by, that requires me to act differently than how I
right.
normally would.
Yeah,
So yeah, it continues to be positive. Yeah,
good,
most certainly.
good. Well, that's so much of the training, right? Is to step out of our ordinary habitual modes of being. Even what our subject matter tonight is about that.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Yeah. And can you let us know what it is tonight, the second half of our show?
Yeah, yeah,
I
we're gonna be
forgot.
we're t- we're t We're talking about the invaluable teaching on viewing all sentient beings as our mother.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. It's
So
such a good one. It's so
that's
clever.
it. It's such a good one. And the thing is that totally requires us to just stop. Stop
Yeah,
all our normal habitual patterns of me, mine, you, yours, whatever, and to see it from a different point of view.
yeah, yeah, most definitely. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to talking about it.
Same, same.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a ton to report myself.
Yeah.
Nah, life's just carrying on. I have not had deep realizations or profound insights or any of that. I
Daniel, come on.
I know, I know. I so badly want to share something fresh and new every week. But no, I am still, as you said, one of the greatest things that we could do is to take the advice of our teacher to heart and to practice and apply it in our lives.
Mhm.
And both in terms of darshan and also this last talk, actually, I found it's incredibly practical and incredibly helpful. He was talking about how on Sunday about how we make decisions.
Mm,
And I really, really appreciated that he did not come from any kind of like moralistic, sort of preachy sort of point of view, and was really actually talking about it in a very, very practical sense, like what it feels like, sort of the inner work of decision making.
mm,
And I really appreciated that and took to heart some of the pointers about how to sit with decision making and how to deal with more complex, complicated decisions. And again, not any keen insights or realizations there, but I can see the direction it's going where I'm like, okay, I got it. This is baby steps right now, but I can
mm.
really see how these particular teachings would be helpful to me.
Yeah, great. What
Yeah.
do you have any big decisions that you have to make coming up that you could apply to what
No,
you
but
learned?
you mentioned like your days are thoroughly scheduled with talking to people, right? And I
Mhm.
have I have some of that work-wise, but I have throughout I'm almost 50 years old, and most of my life I've sort of been like a sea otter floating in the ocean, just playing and going wherever the waves take me, and without a lot of decision making, not a lot of active choosing, not a lot of
Mm,
intentionality, right? And so of course that's catching up to me now where I'm like, oh, okay, that's not always a great. I mean, like there's some, there's some pros to that. Some people could lean more balanced in that direction. But I of course need to go the other direction with greater structuring in my life, greater scheduling, better time management, that sort of thing. And I've really resisted it my whole life, and I'm beginning to sort of unpack that resistance and see like where it comes from and how it's not helpful, and how, the best thing I can do for myself and others is this active, intentional decision making, and how it's little steps, lots and lots of little steps, and they're simple, and I can do it. It's not overwhelming, right? Like I
yeah.
can actually do this, but I just have to sort of like make sure that I have sort of the right view in terms of how I relate to all of it. But yeah, it's showing up in, like, kid you not, it's showing up in my calendaring around my work-life balance, right? I
Wow.
have lots of juggling going on between many different activities, organizations, and people. And and so now I'm like being a lot more intentional about that, and I'm already seeing the results. It's actually directly related to the retreat we had as well. So this is
Oh,
all, there's a continuity. I'd say that this particular teaching, the universe may have been trying to teach me my whole life, but I'm just now sort of receptive to it.
yeah.
And so
Well,
like it's been happening over the last like couple of months. It's becoming more and more clear. I'm getting better and better lessons and learning them and applying, and I'm like, okay, all right, I could do this. So I'm getting some balance in that regard. So I'm not as free flowing, wishy washy in my life, right? And it's nice. Like the people in my life seem to appreciate it, and I
mm,
I like it, and I can see that. Um, I can see very clearly that even in very practical matters, um, how applying my teacher's advice is incredibly beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. Wow, that's fantastic that you're seeing how it's changing your life and affecting your relationships and
Yeah.
that's powerful stuff.
It is, it is. I came into this, I've mentioned this in the last couple of shows, if not every time, that, I have a decent amount of sort of like, um, I've projected a lot onto the practices and the sort of religious or spiritual aspects of this, and wishing for, something otherworldly and magical and mystical and all of that. And I'm certain that some of those elements are there, but they're probably found, in the mundane, ordinary.
Mm.
There aren't these separate realities actually going on. I mean, for all for my practical purposes and intents, like right now, the focus is on here, this life now, how to make the best of it. And
Mhm.
um, and I really enjoy how all Buddha Dharma is incredibly practical.
Yeah,
All of it.
yeah, it
I mean,
really is.
it is here to end suffering, so that's quite practical, right? If we can live our
Right.
li if we can live our lives without suffering, uh, there won't be a lot to complain about.
Right, right. It's not funny how like I don't know, for me, I just sometimes I lose sight of that.
Yeah,
Um and forget that like okay, everything that I want is in this practice.
yeah,
Like how do
everything.
I everything?
It's all here,
Like how do I keep forgetting? You know,
right?
every day I forget,
Yeah,
and I know that that's part of where I'm at on the path, and I just keep going.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just sometimes I'm amazed, like wow, I just I I know that this ends suffering. I know that this path works,
Hmm.
and yet, gosh, it really slips from me sometimes.
Yeah, Lama pointed out, he said in his own experience and what he has seen with others that particular sort of um what you describe is so common, partially because of our misperceived specialness, right? We can't actually believe that there are clear, clean sort of instructions, replicatable, like we can try test it out, we can see the results and for ourselves, right? So there's not this sort of blind faith component, but that there's something in us that sort of is like, yeah, okay, so that worked for everybody else to reach their goals, but you don't understand. I'm different, I'm
Uh-huh.
I'm special somehow. I'm not Tibetan, or I'm not this, or I'm not that. I'm something special. And so those
Yeah.
rules or those conditions or those practices don't apply to me in the same way.
Right. Oh, like it's not gonna work. I'm either not
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
maybe it
not
works
good
for everybody
enough.
else.
Yeah. I'm so bad. I'm
Yeah,
so bad that nothing will ever work or
yeah, you're what Lama calls it, terminal uniqueness.
yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that.
No,
I'm so
no.
over that feeling. It's
Y-
ugh.
Right, right,
Ick.
exactly. I don't I remain, it's weird how I can talk about some of this stuff and it can seem like I kind of get it, right? Like I can feel like I get it. But
Yeah.
then every time I think that I get it or whatever, then there comes me, my
Yeah.
special little me.
Yeah. 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 You know where I've found it to slowly start shifting, like kind of glacially, right? But where it's like, okay, that's a real change. Um, is when I feel like someone's kind of misunderstood even slightly, like what I've said. And this is only in the past like couple weeks or even like week as I've been, more and more trying to keep Dharma front and center mulling over emptiness, like
Yeah, yeah,
kind of trying to get more of an intellectual understanding. Um, is that I've noticed in this last week, um, I'll be like hanging out with a friend or a roommate, and they'll kind of misread misrepresent or misstate what I just said, like and it's not important. So it's not even something I
Mm,
need to correct. And then in the last week, I haven't
yeah.
corrected. And that's felt like they're like, that's really different for me. Isn't it so interesting? Like these little
Ah,
things that start shifting where it's like,
yeah.
oh, it actually doesn't matter that I've been slightly misunderstood. Um,
Right.
there's no loss or gain here. And even if there were, does it matter? Does it really, really matter? And so that's been really interesting to see, as well as like some loosening around jealousy, a little bit of envy.
Yeah.
Um, like I just haven't felt that in situations that I typically would. And
Oh,
so
that's
it's almost like
beautiful.
it's an absence, right? It's an absence
Yeah.
of the self-centered or
Mm.
self-motivated thought within those very, kind of specific incidents. So
Oh, I love that. I like that
yeah,
reflection on the changes, right? Like I
yeah,
don't often do that where I stop and say like, "Oh, look, this is actually things are different now."
yeah,
But when you were talking, I was like, "Oh, right. It just within the last week or two, I've noticed a remarkable shift in my patience in
yeah,
ability to be with somebody or something that before I'd be sort of flighty and wanting to skip ahead and be fast, right? And I can see this sort of like, no, no, allow this person to just speak. In fact, my business partner told me today, so we were in a meeting together with a client, and the client was absolutely just, like used 10,000 words to get across a very simple point, right?
yeah.
And we ended up spending a whole hour with him to just really to talk about something that could have been said in an email, but in like two or three sentences.
Mhm.
And I didn't have any, I could see in the beginning, I was like noticed my sort of like eagerness to sort of like, come on, buddy, like
Yeah.
come on, spit it out, right? I noticed it, and then I noticed I was like, I don't need to do that. Like it's okay. I don't need to be anywhere else. I just need to listen to this guy and
Yeah.
like really like be present with him. And then afterwards, my brother was like, wow, like that's my business partner. He was like, yeah, you're a lot more patient than you used to be. He's like, I don't know how
Wow.
you do it.
Yeah. Wow, that's really
Yeah,
great
it
that
was
that
nice.
is
Yeah.
that much of a shift that people are noticing.
Right. Well, I'm just like, I think that that's one of those things that's really helpful to us. It can help us to either restore or to build confidence in the practice, right?
Yeah.
To get some faith. Because when we reflect back on it, like I can see changes in you, I can see changes in my Sangha friends, right, as they practice, but I don't always reflect back on how things have changed for me. And it
Yeah.
is constantly changing, isn't it? Like it's
It really
actually,
is.
it's unfolding and unfolding and unfolding and unfolding, and sometimes like in the midst of all of that we take it for granted.
Yeah. Yeah, most certainly. So check
Hmm.
in. Let's keep checking in about
Yeah,
how things are
I
changing.
agree.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jack, I really appreciate
Yeah.
that.
All right. Is it time for some Lojong?
It's time to press the big orange button.
I'm gonna turn the heater on
Oh, you need it.
while you do that.
Man, I gotta turn the AC on.
Oh no. I know it actually feels like fall here.
It's beginning
Um,
to feel that way here too. I think we
is
call it
it
false fall.
false fall? Is
Yeah.
there gonna be the Santa Ana winds that are gonna mess everything up again?
I don't pay that much attention to the weather. Other than
Yeah.
what's happening around me right now. And I gotta say the last few days have been gorgeous. There's some little
Oh,
wind
good.
and some clouds and oh, it's so nice.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah, yeah,
Good job, Sacramento.
yeah, good stuff. All right, shall I press it? The big
Yeah, let's
orange
do it.
button? Okay,
Yep.
let's get ourselves a random Lojong slogan.
Okay. Number 22. You are proficient if you can practice even when distracted. Okay, great. Let's see what who's this? Jamyang Control in the Great Path of Awakening. He says, a skilled horseman does not fall from his horse, even when he is distracted. In the same way, if you are able to take adverse conditions that suddenly develop as aids to mind training, even without expressly directing your attention to do so, then you are proficient in mind training. The two bodhicittas arise clearly and effortlessly along with everything that appears: enemies, friends, troublemakers, happiness, or suffering. Great.
Mm.
Thank you, Jamyang Control. So,
Yeah. What
Daniel,
that's kind of what we're talking about,
it
right? That we
is.
become more
Yeah.
proficient. All of this mind training, all of this, during meditation, post meditation, all this awareness, development of awareness and concentration and doing all of the Lojong slogans like this, it actually yields proficiency. Right?
Yeah.
We want to be, gain mastery over all of this. And we can see we're becoming more and more proficient so that, things don't, even if something comes, catches us by surprise. What I like what it's pointing out to here is like, you know, if you're able to do this without even having to, right? Like that's how the training is working.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah,
have
for
to,
sure.
without having to apply yourself and so intentionally. You've already developed the motivation, you've already developed the intention, you've worked hard to combat the sort of habitual patterns of the mind, and you begin to see these results in proficiency.
Yeah. It's exciting. I
It
had
is.
an experience yesterday where this was definitely challenged.
Oh,
Like seeing if I could practice when distracted. So I did have to actually apply in the moment. So it wasn't that I was, already kind of like directing my attention to the Dharma, but um I I took my cat outside. We have this patio that I still need to do some work on to make it so that he can't get under. But I thought that I had blocked it off well enough. And of course he got underneath. Like because cats will find a way.
oh
They
yeah.
they will find a way. And there's like a hole where he could get out, like actually like out of the yard and take off or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's my worst nightmare. I've had two cats die, in outdoor things, like traumatic early deaths. And so I just like this is the last thing that I want for my cat, who I love dearly. And so as I saw it happening, I was like, okay, Jack, like this is this is the one of the times. It's always the time, right? So just like, remember like what your training is. Um, and I still was pretty anxious, or I wouldn't say anxious, but more like well, I was pretty like direct and maybe a little bit angry in directing like my roommate like what to do to help like move things so that he couldn't get out and all that. Um but yeah, maybe that's just what I needed in the moment to be like, okay, it's direct, like direct, it's this important right now, like please just move the things right now, right? But yeah, so that was a moment where I was like, okay, I'm typically, especially like 5 years ago or so, where I'd be so extremely anxious that like I would probably not even know what to do. Like I would need someone else to come like take care of that for me. Um, and and that didn't happen. I was able to like calmly enough uh get support and ask for help, and it was fine. The
Oh,
things were fine.
good. Oh, good.
um
And kitty cat's okay.
he's okay, yeah, yeah. But that's just one of those moments where it's like, again, we can kind of look and see like how have things changed because of our mind training. And can we, in those moments of like uncertainty and like, oh no, this was not like what what I was
Yeah.
expecting. Like, can I remember? Oh wait, no, of course, this is it. Like this is Dharma. This is the moment. This is this is everything. Um, and so yeah, that was a good little experiment.
I love it. You didn't lose yourself. You didn't lose your ability to stay present and to work with the situation at hand, right? It's
Yeah.
it has a good, basically part of the notion of the lion's roar is that all situations are workable,
Yeah.
right? And so like there's like if we don't have to shut down or go into sort of habitual avoidance or reactionary patterns, right? Like you can stay present, you can be with it, you can still be there. Even when all hell's breaking loose, it actually is really helpful if you stay,
Mm,
stay present and aware, right? Because then you could do things like direct your roommate, tell them what to do very quickly and save the
yeah.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good, good, nice.
Yeah, good.
What kind
Okay,
of an
let's
image do
let's
we
work on
have here? Hevajra and consort.
cool.
Wow. Look at
Some
that.
adornments there.
Wow.
Wow, sweet. Ch there's all these different implements, but it looks like there's figures sitting on their hands.
Oh
Is
yeah,
it
yeah,
day?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, there's like oh my goodness, where'd it go? There it is.
Oh,
So we
interesting.
have like what is this? This is like people praying, it looks like.
Yeah,
And I can't quite tell. What is this up here?
I don't know.
Like, huh,
That's really cool.
fascinating. Huh.
There's some animals.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Wouldn't it be neat if we knew the meaning of all of that?
Yeah, we can probably find out.
I'm confident that we can find out. Yeah, yeah, for sure. If we already knew that.
Right. Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, it turns out it takes some effort, doesn't it?
It does.
It
It
does.
does.
Dang it. Well, Daniel, hey everybody. We're
Yep, Jack.
we're talking about all mother sentient beings tonight. This awesome meditation and kind of a little bit of a thought experiment, on considering all sentient beings as at some point having been one of our mothers
This
in our
one was tough for me in the beginning. Still sometimes
lesson.
sometimes
Okay.
still is, but I remember reading something at an event early on at Lions Roar. They had printed out these I think it was a prayer or something. And
Yeah.
I read it said, and may all sentient mother beings. And I remember reading it and I thought, well, that's a typo. Let's what a funny typo, right?
Yeah.
And then everybody was reading it out loud, and everybody said nope. They said mother, nobody said other, and I was like, what the world are they talking about?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mother sentient beings. And then subsequently, I remember hearing a talk on it by our friend Connor gave a talk on it, and then our friend Jen Sparks gave a talk on it as well. Both
Yeah.
of them really helpful for me in terms of like wrapping my head around what we were talking about here.
Yeah. Yeah,
What
yeah.
is the practice?
So it's the first of a seven-part cause and effect kind of meditation for developing bodhicitta, actually. And I think actually the first is equanimity. Um, and then this is actually one of the tools, kind of like the mind training tools for developing equanimity. Um,
Not kind of like it is what
it is.
yeah.
It is. But I'm just imagine, I mean,
Yeah.
there's other tools, right? But this one is so central to Tibetan Buddhism. And you know, from what I've learned from, especially I think I've gotten a lot of information from like Sravasti Abbey and Venerable Thupten Chodron about this training. And really it's all about if we can recognize that, we have been birthed over and over and over again.
Mm,
And same thing, we've also given birth over and over and over
mm,
again. We start to notice, hopefully, interdependence.
yeah.
Um, you know, mothers are such a clear representation of interdependence. We don't exist without our mothers. We don't exist without our fathers as well, but
Yeah.
this very just like obvious representation of there's no separation. There's absolutely no separation from ourselves and others. Uh,
Yeah.
and so being able to visualize and imagine and think of all these lives that we've had, and that every single being, the ant that we see, like trying not to stomp on the way out to run out to my car, or, you know, um,
Yeah.
a client of mine, right? That all of these beings at some point have shown me such kindness that they've, birthed me, raised me, fed me, um, and kept me alive. They're my
Yeah.
mothers. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, in more ways than one, right? There's a lot of different ways to look at this, but what I really like about it is that on the one hand, yeah, this is a tool for developing bodhicitta. And, so that love and that compassion, like this is something it's, is gonna move us toward that. But that as a result of that compassion and as a result of meditating on this, and recognizing the interdependence and the emptiness, as a result of that, it is actually directly pointing out the sort of the non-dual nature of our mind. So it's in that sense not just like this like feel good thing, right? Like
Mm.
ultimately, that's how I took it in the beginning. I was like, that's stretching it, you guys. I was like, I'm
Oh,
I'm not sure I buy into this thing. But
yeah.
I like how on the one hand, as you alluded to, there's this, if you think about the cycle of samsara and how it's beginningless time, and we've been doing this for a long, long for forever and ever and ever, that there's been many opportunities for all of us to be each other's mothers throughout time. That's one way to look at it, and I think that's a fun exploration. But I also like, thinking about both the present and the future mothers as well. So,
Mhm.
of course, there's my dear mom, right, and your dear mom. But actually, right now, because, interdependence, because emptiness, it's not fixed in any way. So what we're talking about in the past about everybody being our mothers, that's actually true in the present moment as well. All beings, we're all interdependent,
Mhm.
and therefore all beings and their existence is nurturing and giving rise really to this being right here, right? And so we're all being each other's mothers now. And then there's also the notion of the future mothers, right? And that my actions right now are contributing to, creating the causes and conditions for the future mothers, right? So when I'm reborn, right? So then my actions now influence those future mothers as well. So it is kind of fun to think about it in terms of sort of the absolutism of time, right? That the time is sort of an illusion. So these references to all sentient beings being our mother, that's not, it actually has many different meanings or different ways
Yeah,
of looking at it.
for sure. Yeah, well, I was also thinking about like a more like psychological kind of level too, that like, we're constantly kind of co-creating one another through our,
Yeah,
projections and our ideas about
that's right.
there. And so there's this, you can think of it in a psychological way too. If you're not quite ready to think of rebirth and whatnot, you can think about like, well, how are we constantly co-creating one another through our ideas? That's
That's
another
right. That's
too.
right. Exactly. Just like I mentioned last week, this whole notion of running off and like giving up on everything and everybody and just being a hermit somewhere, okay, fine. Let's just say that my body ceases to be dependent on other human beings, right? It's still going to be, my physical body is still going to be dependent on other beings of some sort, right?
Yeah.
Because I require sustenance and other things, right? So, it's going to require that. But then even if you dispense with all of that, right, my thoughts, the language of my thoughts, the concepts, what's rolling around up here, that also has been given rise to by other beings. Everything I know, all my language, all my everything came from somebody.
Yeah. No, that is. really, really cool to think about. And that also makes me think about how, our tradition is this lineage. And this
Oh yeah.
lineage is kind of constantly giving birth, giving rebirth to itself so that it can, continue to enlighten people.
Hmm.
And so, we're part of a lineage that's trying to give birth to our liberation. This lineage is our mother as well in such a huge
Mm.
way.
That's really beautiful. I love that. Love
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
it is, right? It kind of feels like, the day that I took refuge, like that was a birth in
Yeah.
itself. It was like, okay, this is a new life that I'm living. And so certainly I know that the Dharma is my mother. And my teacher is my mother in giving birth, giving rise to my wisdom. And it's not mine, right?
Yeah.
It's I don't own it, right? But giving birth to the wisdom that's inherently our nature. Um, yeah, there's so much about mothers, right? That is so like just potent.
It is, and I think that this is some have suggested, I've heard it suggested that these teachings are sort of prime for other cultures and other times and not really for us. Um,
Yeah.
because people will argue that our Westerners, we have complicated relationships with our mothers. Not
Um,
all of us like our mothers. People will be sort of re-traumatized or triggered by, possibly thinking about this and being like, well, how am I supposed to treat all beings as my mother when I don't even like, I hate my mother, right? Or she
mm,
messed me up in this way or that way. And I think that area is actually ripe for exploration, right?
yeah.
It has to be done skillfully, and I think it's good to for people who struggle with the concepts of like with their own mother, right, in relationship to the concept of motherhood. I think it'd be good to talk to a teacher about this particular practice and how to work with it. Obviously, we're not talking about um, just, a mother that gives birth to you physically, right? We're talking about it in a more metaphorical way or a symbolic way, recognizing that interdependence and knowing that all beings are, nurturing and giving rise to us and making it so that we can live, right? And so, it's more like the archetype of a mother. And I've heard it suggested that if you can't do this, if you can't, if you really have a hard time thinking about it in relation to your own mother, and that doesn't evoke warm, sensitive, caring, loving feelings, reverence, or whatever you want to call it, maybe it'd be better to switch it over and to somebody that you did have those feelings for naturally.
Yeah, like maybe a grandparent
That's
or,
right.
some other caregiver in your life. Yeah, I've heard that as well. And I also think it's like it helps break down a little bit of that resistance I think we can have around our mothers in that, we get to see like, okay, yeah, maybe we did have a mom who was not like the kind of nurturing mom that we would have wished for, but what were the things that she did that that made me who I am, and just the fact of giving birth, right, is
Yeah.
like that's a powerful act. And we're in the world because of that. And so I think sometimes too, like it can help a little bit, like if we have that anger towards our mothers to soften a little bit around like, well, here's what she did do. Um, and and I think that can be really helpful, especially if like our whole perception has been really negative. Like if we
Yeah.
can get like, well, here's what did happen that was positive. It helps it be a little bit more balanced and not to like invalidate, whatever traumas, right? But
No.
just kind of see the whole picture. Um, so I think in that way it can be a little bit healing to think of like of mothers in all of their you know, I guess in a full light rather than just kind of focusing on only the positives or only the negatives. Um, we're very yeah, we're so psychological in the West where we're focusing on like, well, what is the cause of my, my sadness, or what is like the
Yeah.
cause of my anger, and that it has to be about like, well, someone did it to me or someone didn't do enough, or um, and uh, and so I think it's a good way to balance this one. If we're ready for that, we don't have
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, it's okay to get a little bit abstract, right?
sure,
So
absolutely.
like thinking about, well, what are we talking about, in terms of mothers? Like what's the function of a mother,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Nurturing, supporting, allowing us to grow, that type of thing. And in that sense, I mean, we can view all things, all beings as our mother, even ourselves, our own,
yeah,
in the same sort of light. And that
yeah,
means like, I think that it's really critical to, especially those that we are challenged by, right? Especially those that we hate, to use tools like this to soften up our heart. That's what this is about, right? To
yeah, most
see
definitely.
that there is no separate me and you, right? That
Right,
dualism that's at the root of so much of our suffering is false. And
right,
it's not this sort of like, this isn't a feel good thing. It's not a sugarcoating. We're not trying to BS anybody, right?
right,
We know that there's a lot of harm caused in this world by people's various conditions, right? Like people, we whatever, hurt people, that sort of thing. We know that, right? But at the same time, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to tame our minds, right? We're trying
yeah,
to cultivate this warm, open heart, this compassionate, loving heart. And we
yeah,
know that our tendency, our habitual tendency of me and mine and, transactional relationships and all of
right,
that kind of stuff, we
right,
know that's where we've been. That's samsara,
yeah,
right? Like, okay, like, can we try something different here? Even just as a thought experiment, right? Like there,
right, right,
we're just talking like, if let's just you view this as a meditation, right? Just try it out for a minute, right?
yeah.
What's it like to experience, to think about? And Jack, I love this particular thing, not just with people, right? But I love it with animals.
Oh, me too.
It makes it really, really easy to feel very tender towards even sort of like stinky, messy, annoying animals, to be like, you know, at one point they were like swaddling me and feeding me and protecting me and all of that, right? Like it's really quite beautiful to reflect on that, even just even if you don't believe it.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, just to imagine, and the way that it turns your mind is so beautiful. Like just how quickly that can really help me drop into a place of compassion and love. And and yeah, connection with this like the image that popped in my mind was of like a scorpion, like that's kind of maybe
Yeah,
an animal that I would have a hard time, feeling love for. But thinking of that scorpion as one time being my mom,
yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, oh,
Right,
I love
right. I
you.
won't I won't rehash it because I know I told this story before, but I had a really powerful mother experience with a mosquito once during meditation.
Yeah,
And just this feeling where I was like looking at this thing stinging me, and how different my mind, how it switched when I really began to reflect on the mother nature of the mosquito, right? And its relationship to the present its own continuity of life and mosquito life, and but also reflecting on sort of my relationship. Like at some point, the same creature here risked its life in order to, take care of me when I was helpless, when I didn't know, couldn't fend for myself, when I couldn't eat for myself or whatever. Like this same being was there for me, doing the same thing it's doing right here. And oh my God, the way that it felt, this talk about a heart opener, right? Like for a stupid little mosquito, right? And there's like, like, man, there's only trillions and trillions of life forms out there that
Yeah,
we can practice with.
right. Oh, so many. Even, within our own body. Well, I don't know if bacteria are
Yeah,
sentient,
I think they are. I'm going to argue
You
that they
do?
are.
Oh, cool. That's good to know. But yeah, that we have so many organisms, like even just in and on our own bodies, that we can imagine that with, and that they're keeping us alive, in this life. And so they're kind of in the same way that universal mother, that nurturing that we need to have, is constantly happening, even if we're just right, like alone in a cave in the woods, right? There's
Yeah.
constant nurturing of our well-being happening. Um,
Do you think, I mean, all right. Are we being a little bit naive though? Like a
how's
lit, well,
because of
just like,
intention or what?
what's that?
Because of intention that like the bacteria couldn't have intention towards nurturing or
Not even, no, I just mean the whole thing, right? Like, is it, like, does it really actually make sense? Like, are we deluding ourselves somehow by by imagining these people and these beings and stuff as our mothers? I mean, what if they're really a jerk? What if they're really somebody harmful? Like, okay, all right, who's somebody who's alive right now who is like really evil
Hmm.
in your book?
I mean,
Come on, say one.
the first what top of mind is Donald Trump,
Okay, all right, fine.
right?
Okay.
You know?
So let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay.
All
I
right.
have thought about him as my mom.
How was that?
It was actually really nice. And it doesn't change the fact that I think that he's dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Like he is dangerous. I
Mothers
really,
can be quite dangerous.
yeah, people can be really dangerous.
Yeah,
Um, and that doesn't change like how I would vote or,
right?
how I would interact in a room with someone who I knew was like a dangerous, harmful person, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it changes mm, my self-centeredness.
How do you do it? Like,
How do I
okay.
do it in the
So
moment?
yeah, okay. So here I am, and I'm like, oh, that Trump, he's a man, nasty dude, whatever. Okay, now I'm feeling this. And then here
Yeah.
comes Jack, and Jack's like, so Donald Trump used to be your mom, right? So how does this go? How do I actually practice this with Donald Trump?
Well, that is literally what I do is I notice like the repulsion,
Mhm.
and I'll kind of do a little bit of a, hey, wait a minute, Jack, this is the same person who at one point was taking care of you.
Yeah.
So let's like just, and I don't know if this is traditional approach, but I'll imagine a previous life. And it could be as an animal or humans, and I'll imagine a little bit what my life was like, maybe was
Hmm.
like with our different mind streams in a different body.
Yeah.
And just kind of visualizing like, okay, yeah, that that being at one point took care of me.
Yeah.
Um, and and again, yeah, it doesn't change my approach to him as a
Hmm.
person right now. But I can feel that like glimmer of compassion
Yeah.
and that glimmer of like, damn it, I'm really connected. You know, I'm actually connected to this person that I
Yeah.
otherwise really I don't want to be, right?
Right, right.
Every day.
Yeah.
And so it kind of, it just it shifts me into that again, like not being so self-centered, not thinking I'm so different from him, right?
Right.
That actually I'm co-creating all of this with him as well,
Right.
like we are
It,
co-creating worlds together.
if you
Uh,
think about it, it's this balancing act, right? Like what's actually
yeah,
happening is we have overestimated in many cases the negative, perhaps, right? And that what we're trying to do is to gain some balance, a more gap balanced perspective. And all that anger, that hatred, or that despising or judging or whatever, it's not seeing clearly, right? Like it's not to say that we're trying to pretend that Trump or anybody else is something other than what they are. We actually want to see them clearly. And our own animosity, our own anger, our own judgment, all of that clouds our ability to see that. That actually deep down inside, that what we believe here is in Buddha nature, right? And that every being, every sentient being has that Buddha nature, which is
yeah,
inherently good and it's indestructible,
yeah, yeah,
right? That the motherly aspect of Trump is that goodness is indestructible. And it actually kind of, I feel like when I think about it like that, I feel like it really softens me up because I'm like, well, then why is he such a
yeah.
jerk?
What's
Right?
happening
And
here?
and then I'm like, well, for the same reason I'm a jerk sometimes, right? Because I'm oftentimes ignorant, right? I'm oftentimes attached to particular concepts or beliefs or attitudes or whatever, or I'm trying to avoid something, right? That
Yeah,
my mind stream suffers from poisons and afflictions, and obviously, clearly so does his, right?
yeah.
And I so badly do not want that for either one of us.
Right, right. We don't want our mothers to suffer.
No, not now, not in the past, not in the future, not at all. No.
No, we want them to be free. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, like that, sometimes yeah, where I get confused is like because someone's doing something like harmful, then I immediately kind of get that brain of like, well, then they should be punished or they should
Right.
somehow, suffer.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that hasn't been working for us. Really hasn't
Yeah,
been
hasn't
working.
been working. Maybe we should try something
It
else.
really hasn't.
Right.
And so thinking about all of these beings as my mother, yeah, it's reorienting back to, like you said, their
Yeah.
Buddha nature.
Yeah.
And every one of like our mothers wish to be happy, to be free. And we can help with that. Might not
That's
happen for everyone in this
right.
lifetime, right? It's certainly
That's okay.
not, and that's okay.
That's
Yeah.
okay. You know
Yeah.
what? As many as it takes,
As many as it takes. I love that.
right?
Yeah.
We could be moms too. Let's come on, let's do it. We'll continue to be good mothers and we'll be good children and we'll continue to try to make more good mothers and more good children.
Yeah, that's all we can do. Just
That's
keep
it.
trying. Well, my friend, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. I
Yeah,
enjoyed this conversation. I feel softer already.
me too. Thanks for being my mom.
Oh,
That's
thanks for being my mom.
You're welcome. It was nice.
Yeah, yeah, it's been good. Well,
All
hey,
right.
I still need my allowance.
I don't have any. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
dang it. Okay. All right.
Gotta have it all myself. I'm sorry.
All right, all right, all right, mom.
All right, friend. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, bye everybody.
Bye,
Toodaloo.
everyone.